Research GB1. Our friends over at the Moyo store sent us a really cool steampunk build, and well, I'm gonna need all the help I can get. Well, you're right. I don't know what steaming old punk album's actually gonna do. Oh, and our friends are here. Hey everyone, and welcome to Groove Builders, the show where we create together. I'm your host, Disorderly Cone, and that robot over there is GB1. In this episode, we're going to be taking a look at the Machine Planet Steampunk Anglerfish build. And this comes to us from our friends over at the Moyo store. And if you haven't checked out their store yet, you definitely should. They have all kinds of really cool models on there with great features. Some of them light up, others have Bluetooth speakers, and some of them even charge your phone. But one thing that they all have in common is they're made from hardware parts, and that makes them really truly unique. If you see them on there that you're interested in picking up, if you enter the code GROOVE, you'll get 10% off. That's actually a pretty sweet deal. Now Groovers, with the Anglerfish, we have over 1,000 pieces to put together, which makes this one of the most complex builds we've put together on the show. What are the tricky bits? What tools are you going to need to build the Anglerfish? And does that light up thing actually work? These are all great questions, Groovers, and we're gonna get the answers. Let's get down to the workbench and take a look at our package. And boom! There we have it, our instruction booklet to build our Anglerfish. Let's go ahead and take a look at this guy. Okay, there's quite a bit here. It actually looks very busy. Let's get some coffee first. Okay, now we're ready to take on this little guy. First things first, we have instructions on how to build our model, followed by a parts list detailing everything that's in our kit. Next, we have some more instructions here on how to actually put our parts together if you're having a bit of a hard time. Then, we get into the meat and potatoes of our build. This definitely looks very different than what we're used to with Metal Earth. And being that these guys use pictures, it makes it a little bit easier for us to understand how everything's going to go. Also, these little red notes throughout the book give us some really good hints when it comes to putting our little bits together and of course getting them in that proper orientation. Now when it comes to our build, the first thing we're going to talk about is how to get this jaw line all properly constructed and lined up correctly. Next, we'll talk about these fins and also how to attach the back on here and get it all lined up correctly. Finally, we'll touch on attaching all of our pieces together and also talk about how to get this little nut here in the back. This little anglerfish definitely has some attitude. Will that translate to a really hard build? I don't know, GB1. With all these differently shaped parts, I think we're gonna have to approach this build from a different angular. Oh, come on, I thought that was pretty good. Now, with the majority of these pieces being nuts and bolts, and being that there's so many of them, we're definitely going to need some tools. What tools are we going to need? That's a great question. Let's ask our tool expert. Timothy?
Did you know that I've been doing steampunk before it was cool?
Hey, you're right. Cool.
I know. The Machine Planet Steampunk Anglerfish, with its hardware parts, is a true test of dexterity and patience. Machine Planet does include tools like adjustable screwdrivers, pliers, and a nut key. While useful, you will also need 2 times 30-piece organizers and tweezers. Can I play with him in the tub first?
Thanks, Timothy, and we'll see. Daleks, always really liking the most dangerous pets. Now, these tools are an absolute necessity to get this build complete, and that's why the majority of them actually come inside the toolbox. And I gotta admit, I'm actually really impressed with the quality of these tools. I don't know how well these are gonna show up in our TARDIS, but what I really like about them is the fact that you not only do you have a flat head, and of course you have a Phillips head on the other side, but you also have the ability to change the size of your screwdriver. What I mean by that is you can have a small one like this, or you can have a really long one like that, which is fantastic when you're trying to adjust certain things inside these builds. And afterwards, being that I'm a bit of a tinkerer and modeler myself, I know I'm gonna use these quite a bit. So again, really super impressed by these tools. Now, Groovers, we've looked at our instructions and we have all of our tools. There's only one thing left for you to do, and that's for to press that like and subscribe button. We're currently trying to get to 4,000 subscribers here on the show and really could use your help. No pressure though. We're not building any piranhas to be released inside your pool or anything. Seriously, I wouldn't release piranhas in your pool for not pressing like on a video. Silly goose. Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that like and subscribe, and I can't wait to see you on future builds here. We got all kinds of cool stuff coming out, and to be honest with you, I'm really excited to show you how to do this stuff. All right, Groovers, now let's get down to the workbench and build our anglerfish.
The Machine Planet Steampunk Anglerfish is a build that is truly unique. Normally, we will talk about how to properly shape our parts, but because most of our pieces here are hardware, there's really not much shaping here to do, at least on the surface. This is a whole nother animal. Let's start with our front part of our fish. We begin by building the base and some of our teeth. Now, for the most part, this is extremely straightforward. All we need to do is follow the diagrams in order. Personally, I worked from the screw all the way to the nut, and by following each piece in order this way, I didn't miss anything, or place it in a different order. Where things start to get complicated is that upper jaw. At the end, we'll have a rough U-shape, but making sure that we have the right U-shape is the trick. I recommend not over-tightening your bolts at any point in time. I know it's super tempting, but believe me, you don't want to over-tighten your bolts and screws. Eventually, you're going to want to make small adjustments, and if these pieces are too tightly put together, you simply won't be able to. It's also super important to make sure that we take note of the pictures and their orientation as well. This cannot be understated. The instructions at times can be a little hard to follow, and we have to be very accurate with everything that we fit together. I can't tell you how many times I took apart this model just because I thought I put something on the wrong way, and really, it was just slightly out of adjustment. Taking note of the picture on the front of our instructions is also a good idea too. This picture can help you determine the proper positioning of our sides and front. Let's compare ours. A little wide, but we should be okay for now. Let's move on to our fins. One of the things that really pulled me into this model was the mix between leather, metal, and light. These leather parts stand out for sure, but are they any trouble? No, not really. Putting these guys together is just like before, very straightforward. We want to start from the screw and work our way to the nut. Now we're going to do this for all the detail on the fin, and also screw these little guys in like this. See? All good. Look at our fin. Now let's go ahead and put this onto our fish. Again, when securing this fin to our fish, try not to over tighten the bolt. You really do want to have some movement here for later when you want to adjust the part, and you also don't want to bust a nut. Getting our top of our back connected, especially that first part, is definitely one of the hardest parts of this entire build. That being said, it's not so much lining up the entire back that's hard, mostly just step 79. If you're like me, you most likely didn't follow everything down to the T in terms of positioning, and our parts aren't going to line up. We can put a little bit of force onto our hardware. After all, it's just really big chunks of metal, but it can still bend, so we don't want to put too much pressure to move any one part. Remember earlier when I said don't tighten too much? Well, this is one of those times where that statement is going to save you. For me, I need to take my jaw and kind of slim it out a little bit, and also push up the top too. By pushing and pulling different parts of my anglerfish's front, I was finally able to line up our pieces about 90% of the way. After putting the bolt through and securing our nut in place, I was able to manipulate the pieces to get a better fit, allowing the back to go in almost seamlessly. This is where I spent the majority of my time in this build, so don't be surprised if you get a little hung up here too. Finally, let's talk about putting all of our assemblies together, including our little light. Again, things here are really straightforward. If you have great dexterity in your fingers, you'll be in heaven. Originally, I thought wires ran throughout the entire angular fish. To my surprise, it's just a small LED light bulb with some watch batteries in it. We turn it counterclockwise to turn it on, and clockwise to turn it off. Now we're just gonna slide this little bolt here in place, and boom! Our iconic light. Let's grab our fish and put this all together. With just a bolt and a few gears, a nut, and there we go! All connected. See, told you it wasn't that bad. Now, like the top part of our fish, the bottom part can be a little tricky too if everything's not lined up perfectly. And the best way to think about how this whole thing needs to be collapsed together is like those old extendable grabby hands. We need these H22s to bend back on themselves, just like when our hands are fully retracted. You might need to adjust those first couple of parts we built to get everything exactly where we need it. By flipping our fish over to the bottom, we can see those connections very clearly and loosen them up just a little bit to move our fins and everything into place. Just like our other models, it's important with our assemblies to match them up a few times to see if they all fit together. This way you'll know if they'll go in the first time rather than fighting with it and possibly bending key parts. Let's just adjust this right here and give a little bit of a pull, and boom! Our angler fish all complete, and doesn't it look so cute? Now we just need our car stand, and to be totally honest, it's not necessary to build if you don't want to. But of course you know we're gonna do it. It has cool drains on it. We're just gonna take our pieces here, screw this into place, try to line these up and put that guy right in the middle, give this a little screw, and boom! Look at that. I think the only downfall here is that these wheels don't seem to spin. Bummer.
And there we have it, the Machine Planet Steampunk Anglerfish build in all of its glory. This model looks awesome when it's done, and I gotta say, as my first hardware build, I really had a good time putting it together. Is it for new modelers out there? Well, you know, there were a couple little difficult bits. Putting the little top out here was hard, and of course getting that back all folded down correctly was also a little tricky, but outside of those two things, this model came together really well. And you know, the Mojo store actually has a ton of different models on there at a variety of different skill levels, so if you didn't really want to jump on this guy right away, they have some other ones on there, like some insects and stuff, which might get your feet wet a little bit better than jumping into the deep end with this guy. At the end of the day though, I really did enjoy building this, and if you're looking for something a little bit different, I would say go ahead and pick this guy up. You won't be disappointed. Alright Groovers, that brings to the end of our show. I had a really good time building the Machine Planet Anglerfish with you, and if you guys had a good time, don't forget to press that like button. For more videos like this, hit subscribe as well, as we got all kinds of really cool content coming out in the future. Want to help the channel grow and get some pretty cool stuff too? Check out groovebuilders.ca. We have all kinds of really cool models on there at great prices with fast shipping to the United States and Canada. Until next time Groovers, keep building. Alright Timothy, I got you a new pet.